the conversion rate on your website is a black box. We added 178,000 a month recurring and profit to their business. We increased this client's average order value. I think it was by 47%. Don't just hide your reviews. Like if you check your product page right now and you only have 4 and 5 star reviews, that's super sus. Your headlines ultimately decide whether someone clicks or bounce. So if you guys want to really see some gains with your CRO stuff, test your headlines like crazy.
What's going on, everyone? It's Spencer here. If you're new to the channel, I run a growth focused agency by the name of Easy A Media, where we help accelerate the growth of brands looking to get to multiple 6 and 7 figures per month. And in today's video, I'm actually showcasing an entire presentation and keynote that I basically did for a good friend of mine by the name of Justin Lalonde. He invited me to speak to his community, and in the process of doing so, I put together an entire presentation of everything that we know about conversion rate optimization. And as you saw briefly in the beginning, I'm actually going to get into some hands-on conversion rate optimization tactics that you can use today to see an increase in conversion rate and average order value in your business. So make sure you stick all the way to the end to check those out. So with all that said, let's go ahead and actually jump into the presentation.
So we do ads, we do creatives, and we do CRO. The reason why we do all 3 of those things is early on, I was, as I mentioned, Justin's podcast, a lot into web development, but I realized pretty quickly that one of the main things that can also improve return on ad spend or lower CPA, which is what a lot of people ultimately want, is just by improving conversion rate and improving average order value. So with ads and creatives, you can obviously lower your CTR, you can, get better cost per click, you can sometimes improve conversion rate as well. If while we're doing that on the creative side, we're also kind of attacking the website and playing offense over there and trying to increase conversion rate and trying to increase average order value, overall, the ad account is going to be able to scale a lot further. So to give you guys some context, we built pages for a bunch of different brands, brands as big as Try Snow. So they're like a $100 million company. We've done landers for them. We've done landing pages for, like influencer brands. This is a brand by a professional NHL hockey player. We also worked with brands that you probably have never heard before. That's why I threw this one in here. So everybody loves to show you brands that they've worked with, and most of the time you don't know any of them, but hopefully you guys know Snow. That's usually the one that a lot of people see, like, oh yeah, I've heard of them before. But again, it's allowed us to, this is a split testing tool that we use, and I'll give you guys all the tools and the stuff that we use. But for a lot of these brands, we've been able to come in and add insane amounts of profit to their business on a monthly recurring basis, which is really what makes CRO such an insane tool. This is the increase in conversion rate, this is the increase in revenue, and this is the actual increase in profit. So this is one of the most successful split tests that we ran. We had a client where we added 178,000 a month recurring and profit to their business. Another brand over there was $53,000 per month in profit. We've had obviously smaller brands where it's like 14,000 a month, 7,000 a month. But as you can imagine, like if you're a company that is already doing 30,000 or 40,000 a month, or even just 10,000 a month in profit, and you can add another $1,000, $2,000 or $3,000 to your bottom line just by having a more optimal store, I mean, that's huge. That can cover your Lambo leasing costs or, Stripe fees for I hate my freaking Stripe fees, but we've done a lot of split tests. So we've launched a lot of split tests. So the stuff that I'm gonna show you guys today has helped a lot with just me being able to scale further, which at the end of the day, these are probably the screenshots that you guys recognize and the ones that you care about. The reason why we split test though, is because the conversion rate on your website is a black box. I always love when clients are like, conversion rate is amazing today. Like, what did we do, Spence? And I was like, literally nothing. The same thing that we did yesterday when convert 3%, right? So your conversion rate is always going to fluctuate. But by doing these split tests and kind of holding all of those other variables and the uncontrollables of the market and everything else that's going on, holding those the same will then help us kind of stack these winning conversions and these winning optimizations on top of each other to allow us to have bigger months. So basically the main spiel, and that's just hopefully to give you guys or provide a little bit of credibility that I have some kind of idea that I know what I'm talking about. I'm not an absolute expert, but I like to tell people I'm not a complete idiot. So the main thing is like nowadays having a store just doesn't really cut it. If you just have a website live, it's like great, I could get a website live in the next 10 minutes if I really wanted to. So you really have to focus on optimizing, most importantly, that customer experience. Okay. And the reason why is because consumers have so many more options. You can literally, like I said, within a couple of clicks, have a storefront live, be connected to Facebook and start running a brand. Like we hired this client, just to give you guys guys some context and we'll get into the good stuff. We hired a client that was doing about 200, 300K a month, or hired a client, brought on a client, and he was bored of his store. So a day later, he launched a brand new store and he was already doing $1,000 a day in sales in 24 hours, which is just absolutely insane. So it's like the rate that some of these people and the rate that this industry is growing is insane. So it just means that it's getting more competitive, which means we need to do a lot more than click buttons. Maybe some thumbs up. Does that all make sense? Perfect. Awesome. So CRO, where do we start, right? And conversion rate optimization, just so you guys know, some people think it's landing pages. Some people think it's split testing. It's kind of everything. And the reason why we start with what I would say the boring stuff first is because if you ask me what CRO really is, it's just providing a better shopping experience and it's just providing a better customer journey. That's really all it is. We're just trying to improve the customer journey that people are having on our store. So if we want to do that, we have to go and like look at what our customers want. So the first thing that we do whenever we do any kind of CRO is some kind of customer-backed research survey. The way that we do it, and more than happy, Justin, I can send you guys the SOP that we have for this. But we just run a feedback survey in like a giveaway style. So we're like, hey, we're doing a giveaway, opt in. Every question that you answer gives you an extra, entry to win the giveaway. And then you can just give away whatever it is. So for this client in the example, they actually sell these like dumb phones, which is kind of a funny product. But you could do it with your product. You could do it with, an Amazon gift card, whatever it is. You just want to make sure there's some kind of incentive for people. And then what we do is we just ask very simple questions, like even questions as simple as, what do you want to see improved on the store? And a lot of times people will be like, better imagery, better descriptions, right? Or your menu doesn't make any sense. Then we also ask people like some pretty common ones, like, did you have any concerns while you were purchasing? We then also like to ask, like, who are you shopping for? Are you shopping for your kids? Are you shopping for yourself? And one of my favorite questions is, how has our product actually made your life better? And what you'll see is some people, for example, we did this for, I think it was a pajama brand, and we had somebody say like their pajamas, like, hasn't made my life better. But then we also have other people that are like, oh, it's brought our family closer together because every single night now I tell my kids to go get on their pajamas and they get all excited and they put them on and we're all matching. And those are the things that, let alone CRO, it also helps you with ads. But now with that information, if I know what people just want to genuinely see improved, and then I also know what, their concerns were prior to purchasing, and then I know like what the end outcome is, I can start to optimize that customer journey a lot differently. Okay. So this is what we kind of call the qualitative data, like the actual understanding of who the customer is and what they want. And then from there, we want to get the quantitative data, which is like the nerdy stuff. So how do we actually then see what people are doing on the website? And this is a tool that we use. Big shout out to Dylan. I'm going to bring him up again, but this is his software now. And what this allows you to do compared to the hot jars of Lucky Oranges of the world, it allows you to actually see the revenue that each click has. So they even have a data table where you can just go in and be like, hey, show me this element and show me how well it's converting when people actually click it. Or for me, what I love to use is for collection pages. If you guys have multiple products, or even with landing pages, if you guys have multiple sections, you'll actually be able to see which sections are performing better with this because it actually has the conversion data attached to it. So this is how we then, we take the customer feedback survey stuff to understand the customer, and then we use this with heatmap.com to really understand what people are then doing on the site. And with those two things, we then move into the next phase, which is what we call bucket testing. I'll pause here for a second. Anybody have any questions on heat map, or does it seem like everybody's good on that on heat map and the feedback survey? All make sense? Good.
I have a good question if it's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you have these like, the questionnaire where you ask everything and kind of like gather info on that. Is it a questionnaire like post-purchase when they purchase something with already existing customers?
Great question. Well, no, so I'm nodding. This is a great question. What we do is we actually send this to our list. So this is not a flow. Definitely can have a flow set up, but what we found is we just do one big giveaway, typically like once a year. We kind of do this at the start of the year for our clients, or if it's a new client, that we just gather anybody who's purchased and we just do a massive send out. Like we just do like a campaign with this giveaway because we're doing a big giveaway. Everybody gets excited. And then this is how we collect just a ton of data and we summarize it with AI. Again, I'll send that to you guys after, but the main thing is we just get, anywhere, depending on how big your list is, from 100 people to sometimes 2,000 people just giving us tons of answers. And so you can set this up as a post-purchase flow. But what we found is, depending on how you set it up, like people haven't really used the product for that long. So we want to do this just to people who have already had the product, have already experienced our brand, have maybe bought multiple times. And that's what we want to, that's who we want to hear from. So that's how we set this up. Does that make sense? Cool. So once we have all that data, we haven't even really talked about CRO yet. So now we'll start talking about it. And I just want to put emphasis emphasis on that as well. Like, you have to understand what the hell people actually want before you start optimizing the store. Because if you're just copying what you saw on Twitter because you think it looks cool, or some design because you think it looks, your client would like it, that's not really going to drive conversions. And I can tell you that because we've done that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if you really want to be accurate with the CRO that you're doing, you have to understand who you're doing it for. So those two things help us do that. And then this is where we start doing our bucket testing. Now, with that said, for bucket testing in general, you are going to want to have a decent amount of traffic coming in or a decent amount of orders coming in. So if you're currently doing like less than $20,000 or $30,000 a month in sales, you can still do this, but it's going to take you longer. And the reason for that is because we need to get something called statistical significance, which is, if you guys think of flipping a coin, if you flip a coin 3 times and it lands on heads 3 times, you would draw the conclusion that, oh, every time you flip a coin, it's on heads, which is not true. We all know that it's 50-50, right? But this can happen when you're doing tests if you don't get enough data, because you have somebody come in and spend $200 when your typical average order value is like 60, and now you're like, oh, well, this page is way better. You just need to make sure you have enough data so that it evens things out. With that said, you can still do this. It's just, it needs to be probably run a little bit longer. So our benchmark for this is like 150 orders per variant, or just at least 14 days of testing. But even then, if you're still not at 150 orders per variant, I would just recommend letting this run longer. It's not going to hurt to have this run for a month or a month and a half if you just need that long to get the data, but you just want to make sure that you have more, statistically significant data. Okay. This is just for bucket testing. So when it comes to bucket testing, the tool that we use is called Intelligence. So this is where we can literally A/B test. It's like $100 a month. I have a code where you can just get 10% off and it puts it to 90. But what this lets us do is we're able to come in and then just strategically test section by section. Because what happens a lot of times is if you do a brand new landing page, which we'll get to, that landing page might not convert. And the reason it might not convert may be because the hero sucked. Maybe it's because, the middle section sucked. Maybe the messaging sucked. Maybe the design wasn't that good. Maybe, the function and where you were sending traffic after wasn't that good. There's all these different variables, and you aren't really able to know why it didn't work, right? And so how we get around that is by doing bucket testing, where if we launch a test and it doesn't work, well, at least we can then take a different stab at it. So for example, with this first optimization here with the 2 different chords, if this didn't convert, we can then be like, okay, well, maybe we should go back to the original image, but then just test a new headline. Or for example, maybe if we use the same headline here, maybe we should go back and change the headline. So when you do bucket testing, you do need more traffic and it does take more time, but over a longer time horizon, you're able to get so much cleaner, like much cleaner data on what is converting and what's not, compared to if you just launch a new website or launch a brand new landing page. It's really hard for you to get clean data. So long story short, if you want to do bucket testing and you have the traffic and you have the orders coming in, I highly recommend doing things this way, because it's going to allow you to build a much more optimal website over time. With that said, not everybody has the luxury of that stuff. So that's when we would come in and do full optimizing. What page building software that you use, because I know not everybody has developers, or not everybody wants to pay a design firm and then a development team to do this stuff. We just used to use Replo. We don't use Replo anymore because obviously we just custom code everything now. But if you use Replo, if you use Pagefly, it doesn't really matter. You just want to make sure that when you're building these pages, the biggest takeaway from this is make sure it's actually congruent with your ads. And so you want what you're advertising, whatever your best performing ad is, you want to make sure that you pull that up while you're actually designing the page. Because if you're advertising, say, angle A, which is about knee pain, and then your landing page doesn't focus on knee pain at all, or the headline that says like how this helps with back pain, it's not congruent. It's not going to convert that well. And so what you really want to focus on is making sure that when you're building these full pages, that you're considering the top performing ads or the traffic that is actually going to that page. And then from there, obviously there's some standard best practices of just like, make sure you actually have a strong hero section. Make sure you actually explain the product, right? We love using the 3 reasons or 5 reasons why little sections. Those typically work great. And then from there, make sure you have reviews, make sure you have FAQs, a lot of pretty standard stuff. And one thing that I do want to say is we've noticed that having an actual order form on your page will convert a lot better, at least from the tests that we've run, compared to having like sending people to a product page after, or sending people to, or like having, you ever seen like those blocks of 3 where it's like option 1, option 2, option 3 with just like the 1-click button? We've always found that having an order form will convert better. So those are just some general best practices. But the main thing with this is when you're building these landing pages, you're building them for ads. So don't just build a landing page that you think looks cool. Make sure you're building it so it's aligned with your ads. Okay. Final thing that you guys to know, if there's anything that you take away, I tell like people tune me out a lot. So if you're tuned out, tune back in. This is so important. Again, with ads, with creatives and everything, but even more with CRO, you have to make sure that you're learning from every single test that you run. You wouldn't believe how many times all of those like positive screenshots that I showed you of like plus 30K, plus 15K, plus 20K, there's a graveyard of failed tests behind those, because we're then able to get the data that shows, like I told you in that previous slide, oh, this image didn't really work that well. Let's just test the same image with a new headline and see how that does. And boom, that's the winning variant. So it's so important that when you guys do CRO, or if you build a landing page, that you learn from it and you don't just give up on it and move on to the next thing. I would way rather use like see you over 3 months, focus on optimizing a single landing page with the data that you've gotten from all the tests that you've run, compared to building 3 different landing pages. So in our experience, again, it really just comes down to having clear data that you can make decisions off of, and then making sure that you actually strategize with that new data to come up with new ideas, execute it, test it, again, make sure you test it properly, and then just do that over and over again. Because if you do that, you're guaranteed to improve. And if you are constantly improving, then you're going to eventually get results. So this is the main thing, that when it comes to CRO, you have to make sure that you learn from the tests that you run. You have to make sure that whenever you do it, you actually apply it and you learn from it, compared to just being like, oh, well, that didn't work, on to the next thing. Okay. Now for some best practices, this is something that I know Justin liked when we talked about on the on the podcast. This is something I get asked all the time, like, hey, what's a good conversion rate? Or like, what, how is my store doing? We like to look at a metric that we've called just your Shopify score. So everybody can do this after. You multiply your average order value by your conversion rate, and that's going to give you what we call your Shopify score. And typically what we found is that if you're 0 to 100 on this scale, so say you have a 1% conversion rate and a $50 average order value, your product is just not communicating value that well, or you just have terrible traffic going to your stores. So either it's a traffic fix, or you probably want to do some price testing, or you probably need to look at your product because it's just, people just aren't seeing value. The next range is like 100 to 250. If you're in this range, that just means continue to optimize your store. If you're on the lower end, again, consider some price testing, consider looking at your traffic that you're sending to your store. But for the most part, the goal is to get to 250. If you're 250 plus, that just means you need to scale your traffic, right? So here's a great example of a brand that we're actually auditing right now, and he thought he needed CRO, and I went on his website. I was like, dude, you just need to scale like crazy. Like your Shopify score is 640. Like the store is doing a great job of converting the traffic. You just need to get better traffic or cheaper traffic to your store. And again, when I say cheaper traffic, that doesn't mean like go for link clicks. It just means create better ads that are more engaging to get more clicks to the store. Okay. So this is something that will give you guys kind of a range of how well your store is converting currently before you go and apply some of this stuff. And then from there, another metric that is really good to look at is add to cart to conversion ratio. This is one of my like most popular videos on YouTube. And I say popular, it's like 10K views for me, and like Justin's, 70K that he gets. But 4 to 1 is kind of that ratio where like, okay, we're probably having a bit of a disconnect here. 3 to 1 is more ideal. And what I'm talking about, by the way, is like added to cart. So you can see an 8% add to cart ratio. And then the overall sessions converted is 1.95. That's a 4 to 1 ratio, right? I need 4 add to carts to actually get a purchase. And so what we're looking for is a 3 to 1 ratio. If you can be 2 to 1, that's really good. Like some of our most successful brands are 2 to 1. With that said, returning customer rate also plays a big factor in this. So if you have like a 50, 60, 70% returning customer rate, you're probably going to have a better add to cart to sessions converted ratio. But anything more, again, than 4 to 1, like this one client here in the bottom right-hand corner has a 7% or 6.7% add to cart ratio and a 0.8% conversion ratio. It's probably a traffic issue. And I know it's a traffic issue for them because they run worldwide and get a bunch of kind of crappy traffic. So just know that a higher add to cart doesn't mean a higher conversion rate, but if you can improve your add to cart ratio, that is obviously going to help improve your overall conversion rate as well. Now for some actual good best practice stuff that you guys can hopefully take after this call, and then we'll wrap up. This is something that I mentioned on the podcast as well. Content is everything. Like the only reason why this looks great is because we have a great photo, right? It really just comes down to, if you want your website to look great or have that wow factor, a lot of the times you don't need a CRO agency. You just need to go and get better content for your website. Okay. So make sure that you guys start considering this if you're wanting to optimize your store. Some of the best CRO things that you can do is just go and get better product images. Make it easier for people to understand your product with imagery and with content. That also includes videos as well. Another thing that I love seeing is people who run bundles. If you can run bundles, definitely continue doing it. I can't tell you how many times I just see this like buy one, buy two, buy three, most popular, best value, where at if you compare it to this, which is like, hey, here's the care pod, it's perfect for, smaller indoor spaces or rooms up to 350 square feet. Or, hey, here's care pod times 2, where, it's great for a 1-bedroom or, any room up to 700 square feet. And here's the third one where it's like, it's great for a 2-bedroom apartment. And so now what I'm doing is I'm selling with logistical thinking, right? Logical thinking compared to tactical thinking. Most popular and best value doesn't really do anything. But if I'm a person with a 2-bedroom apartment and I'm reading care pod times three, care pods apparently in this scenario, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need this one. Maybe that's the one for me because that's what they're telling me. And now I'm going to do that. We increased this client's average order value. I think it was by 47% year to date. They were previously like 200, and then we bumped up to like, I don't even know what it was like 250 or 60 or something like that. I don't know what 47% is, but at the end of the day, this stuff works so much better than just trying to be tactical. Again, you can use both, but just make sure that if you're providing bundles or you're doing anything on your store, make it make sense. Okay. Next one on here is above the fold. This, from every single test that we've done, out of all those tests that I showed you, I'd probably say about 50% of them were above the fold tests. So this is just an example. We've been testing videos recently. Videos have been doing okay for homepage hero sections, but you just have to make sure that they're dialed in. But if you really want to see a big impact, you have to be focusing on above the fold, which is basically the first section that people see. And again, the reason why this is such an impactful optimization to make is because it's what 100% of people see. So if you're wanting to spend your time on anything, I would rather see you spend 80% of your time above the fold and 20% below, because that's where the biggest gains are going to come. Next thing on here is something that is a lot of people don't really talk about. Messaging honestly matters more than any kind of fancy design. We have a saying that designs are more for the client and more for you, and messaging is more for the customer. You guys wouldn't believe if like how many websites we've seen with just terrible design, but just have great messaging convert way better, because messaging is what people read. So you're supposed to use design to enhance messaging and not like distract people or not, flex your like what makes you look good. Like just focus on messaging more than anything. And I think one of the best CRO models for anyone to do right now is go and do research on your customer, figure out what the heck they want, all the stuff that Justin talks about that you do for ads, and apply that to your website and start optimizing your messaging there. Massive gains coming from that. Next thing here, this is kind of just a tactical one as well. Don't just hide your reviews. Like if you check your product page right now and you only have 4 and 5 star reviews, that's super sus. Like people know, thankfully with Amazon, that there's 1-star reviews. And at the end of the day, everybody's gonna have 1-star reviews, maybe 2-star reviews. What we always recommend, unless it's some, jackass being like, you guys suck, like stupid product, then you can hide that. But if someone in this scenario is like, hey, I bought this bag, thought it was gonna be more durable, and then I come in, hey, sorry, Jeremy, let me go ahead. I just reached out. Can you confirm that you got the new bag? Now, if I'm a customer reading that, I'm like, okay, well, even if it doesn't work, at least I can get a new one or I get my money back, right? And so that is so much better for you as a business, because now it actually makes all of your 4 and 5-star reviews a lot more believable, okay? This is something tactical that we started doing, and I'm telling you, like, it makes a huge difference, because if you're hiding all of your poor reviews, one, that tells you that maybe you need to fix a bit of your product, but number 2, people aren't going to believe your 4 and 5 stars because they know that these 2 stars and these 1 stars exist, okay? Final few things here, and then we'll wrap up. Have fast and, if possible, free shipping, and then most importantly, call it out. It says thanks Bezos there, because people just, they expect shipping to come fast. You wouldn't believe how many times, like speaking of add to cart to conversion ratio, how low that or how high that ratio is, the 3, 4, 5 to 1 ratios, typically always with people that either charge for shipping or have slow shipping. So logistics wise, whatever you can do to improve your shipping and make it cheaper, the better for your overall conversion rate. Another thing here is make sure your upsells actually make sense. We see a lot of people just throwing random upsells. Again, this is a client, as crazy as it sounds, sells a necklace that starts fires. So we're going to then provide them fire cards, which are things that they can light a fire, as the number 1 upsell. So if you guys can actually think through the upsells in your upsell process and provide a reason, again, for why someone should get that, very, very important. Final few things here, and then we're almost done, Dustin, I promise. Never stop testing your headline. This is something that we do religiously. We at least every 2 weeks are testing new headlines. Just testing this headline is probably one of the most highest ROI things that you guys can do. And again, I chatted with Justin about this. If you guys are literally like having an ad that is crushing and there's a specific headline there, literally just take it, throw it into ChatGPT if you want, ask it to make a few iterations, and then make like a different version of that headline, put it on your landing page, put it on your homepage, and that can make a difference between your ads starting to be able to scale a lot further or just staying where they're at. So your headlines ultimately decide whether someone clicks or bounce. So if you guys want to really see some gains with your CRO stuff, test your headlines like crazy. Final one here, I think this is the last one, 99% sure. Make sure you have FAQs on your page. If you're not answering your customers' questions, it's going to be impossible for them to actually buy your product. Again, logistics, right? Even for fashion brands, if anybody has a fashion brand or anything like that, we see so many times they don't even have models in the chat or models in their product carousel or anything like that. Same thing with FAQs. Like, people are going to have questions about your product. Make sure it's clear, and then make sure that you actually answer them well. If you guys want to hack on how to find really good FAQs, go and read the ad comments that you get on your Facebook ads, and people are going to ask questions in there that 100% need to be on your website, because there's going to be people that are asking those too. Final thing, this is OpenSend. This is a super sick tool, by the way. If nobody's using retention.com or OpenSend, use OpenSend. This will literally scrape emails of people that land on your store. So people that are just adding to cart and not making it to checkout, you can use this tool. It's like $500 a month to just start building your list. But then on top of that, also email market these people that don't even give you their information. Sounds illegal, but you can actually use it. And then the final thing here, I have a link for you guys to take this. This is actually the final thing, Justin, because I can see in the slide. This is so important to make sure that you actually plan your optimizations. If you guys are not planning your optimizations, you definitely need to, or at least have a log of what you're testing, and from there rank it as well. So Dylan Ander, I mentioned him with heatmap.com. He invented, I don't know if he did invent it, but I learned it from him. It's called the ICE score, which you basically rank the impact, how confident you are that it will work, and how easy it is to do for you to decide what you need to optimize next. So a headline, big impact. If you did the research, you should be pretty confident in it, and it's super easy to do because you can just go in and change the headline and it's done. So those are things like when you're thinking of how to optimize your store or where to optimize your landing page, actually having a plan for it. And I have a sheet that you guys can steal, and this is the sheet that we use. Having a plan, keeping track of everything, and then most importantly, making sure that you're processing learnings after the test. It's a great way to make sure that you're staying on track. Okay, I think we made it to the end. That's all I got, Justin. You told me 20 minutes, and I think I went 40.
No, all good, bro. No, you did great. Thank you so much for the value you provided. Which landing page builder do you recommend? I know you talked about Replo, you said Pagefly. I know there's Gem Pages. For someone who doesn't have the capacity to hard code it, what do you recommend?
I honestly haven't. I've seen Gem Pages, I've seen Pagefly. We used Replo simply just because of the templates that they have. I'm not the biggest fan of just ripping someone else's landing pages, but what I am a fan of is getting inspo from a bunch of different landing pages. Not to go on a different tangent, but we just took inspo from like Mudwater and then Athletic Greens and then MyAvi and like all these, not for our website, but when we build landing pages, we do that. And we just like, oh, I like this section, or I like the way that looks. And then you can kind of build your own thing. And so the reason why I like Replo, I think it's a little bit more on the expensive end, but you get just a library full of templates that have a ton of really optimal sections. And it's a great way to speed up the process more than anything. And they also have a like Replo experts section where you can find someone for like $200 that is dialed in to like build a Replo page for you. So it's also very affordable if you have a little bit of a cash flow and you just want like a developer to come in and build it for you. So that's why we've used Replo, and that's why we typically recommend it.
Cool. How frequently are you split testing new landing pages? Is this a recurring offer do you have for your clients where they pay you monthly, or is this like a one-time payment service that you split test until you find a sweet spot work with the landing page?
Great question. So we used to do one-time off pages. The reason why we stopped doing it is because I realized very quickly we couldn't be 100% confident that this landing page was going to convert. And there's nothing worse than be like, oh yeah, we're the landing page experts. We'll build an LP for you. They plug it in, they test it, flops. Right. It would be the same as, and I try to always pair this to the ad creative side. It'd be like, hey, hire me. I'll make you one ad creative. It's going to crush. And you make that one ad creative and it flops, because more times it flops than it actually hits. Then the client's like, what the hell's going on? Right. So the way that we do it now, our CRO service is ongoing. So when we build a landing page for a client, we're very clear that the expectation is, hey, if you don't have a landing page, we're going to build a new one from scratch. And then from there, we're going to need to continue to optimize it, because it's not guaranteed that this is going to convert right away, because there's so many things that we're adding, right? And then that way, if by chance that first version that you do starts ripping and is converting like crazy, which we have had happen, then the client's like, holy shit, you are amazing. Like, you're a legend. Like, wow, I didn't even think it was going to work in the first, and you're telling me that the first version's working and it's going to get better? Referral. You wouldn't believe Gergo's amazing, right? So that's how we frame it. A lot of it comes down to the expectations, but basically, if you're going to set this up, what I would recommend that you do is make sure you're clear on that expectation of, hey, we're going to build you V1, but then you need to continue to pay us monthly or at least for 3 months. So that way you can continue to optimize things further, because to be honest, dude, we've seen landing pages that we launch, they completely flop, and then all we do is we run a hero section, like a test on the hero for that landing page. Now it's crushing, and that's all it was. And you might have thrown away an entire landing page just because the hero section wasn't that good. So that's what I would recommend doing, is make sure you set that expectation, and then make sure that you continue to, to optimize it. And you can optimize, I mean, for some of our clients, we're on like V10 of our landing page, so you can always continue to optimize it further.
Was basically asking, he's like, for he sent a website in from a luxury streetwear brand. He's like, what would you do for a brand selling clothing, essentially, in terms of CRO? Like, how do you go about it?
Great question. Tell them to make more of their best selling product and keep it in stock. That's our CRO process for fashion brands. Because at the end of the day, and I always love when people come to me about fashion. Fashion is very different than a lot of the stuff that I just showed. Fashion is all logistics, right? So for example, I'm looking at this website. I'm not sure if they maybe have it inside of here. Okay, I'm trying to scroll down. Size and fit. Yeah, so for example, there's models in this order form, right? But you're not telling me how tall they are and what size they're wearing. That's something right away that is going to increase conversions, because people are just more likely to buy. When it comes to fashion, you just have to think very, very logical of like, am I showing the lifestyle? Am I showing, like, do I actually have all the information for them to make a purchase? Is my return policy fair, and is it clear? This whole kind of tactical this, tactical that, it doesn't really do much for fashion, because at the end of the day, what does 90% of the selling is the product, right? If the product looks sick, people are going to buy it. And so a lot of times, like, our CRO hack for brands is, if you have a product that's selling, keep it in stock, because most fashion brands can't do that. Does that make sense? It's kind of tough, because fashion, like I said, it's all very logical. There's some smaller tactics, or for example, like, it runs big, it runs size. I see they have that here. Go true to your normal size. But if you could say how big the model is, what size they're wearing, like, I just want to make sure that any of my objections of like, I'm not sure how it's going to fit, or like, I don't know if I can wash it, like, do I have to hang dry it, all this kind of stuff, like, really think in that process compared to like tactical landing page structure and that kind of stuff. With that said, you can try, we have seen before, sometimes like listicles or like brand storytelling pages can sometimes do well to get people bought into the brand, but most of the time it just comes down to logical, and again, more photography, more lifestyle, show what the brand actually is, rather than trying to tell people. Does that make sense?
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Well, if you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this week's video. And if you happen to be a multiple 6 or 7 figure per year Shopify brand looking to get to multiple 6 or 7 figures per month, I'd highly encourage you to apply to work with our agency down below to get a custom action plan from our team. And if you want more presentations like this, or you want behind the scenes access and consulting with me and my team, there's also a link down below for you to join our Evolve program today. All that said, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this week's video, and I'll see you next week.